How are we doing, everybody? This is Let's Be Real Brad. Today, on our MCU Mondays, we are going to be talking about the next film in chronological order, Marvel's The Avengers. Marvel's The Avengers is one of my favorite MCU movies as it gives us everything we want as fans and more. It brought all these likable and great characters all together for one big massive film that got us all excited to see. I think this is a film that doesn't get talked about as much because, well, frankly, we have had 3 other Avengers films that have blown those proportions to the absolute extreme. There are so many characters in those films that this one seems so downscaled compared to those. I love this film because director Joss Whedon wanted to make a colorful, fun, and silly comic book movie with ridiculous costumes. The film feels very self-aware of itself, which could be very annoying and very cheesy to some, but I think the film manages to find that right balance of silly fun to serious blockbuster popcorn action. The best aspect of this film is that the film expects you to have seen the other movies, even though there are a few moments where it tries to give new viewers a small background introduction to the characters, which is excellent for people that want to enjoy a new summer blockbuster superhero flick. This is also awesome because for the people who know these characters with their own separate films, we don't need to take time to dive into their backstories and have a convoluted mess where we can focus on getting this team together and working to fight the big bad guy, Loki, from not taking over the Earth. It is so simple, but anything more would have made this movie annoying and messy in its narrative. Let's start off with some of the positives, starting with the acting. The acting is excellent from everyone as they truly embody these characters throughout these Marvel films going forward and being an absolute megastars all across the world. At this point, everyone knows who stars in these Avengers movies because they are so likable and perfect in their roles. I genuinely hope 40 years from now they don't remake these movies and I have to fight and not be that old person who always says, "Those weren't the heroes I grew up watching. These new people stink. Bring back the originals." Writing is the best part of the series up to this point, with Whedon also helming the script, which I thought he did a fantastic job doing. I know it is very cheesy, but I think it is amusing and has some of the most memorable lines and jokes from the whole franchise. The film is also incredibly self-aware of itself, with knowing how bizarre and weird the things that were happening and tried to look at it through an average person lens of, why is there a god, a green giant man, and a guy in spandex all fighting these weird monsters? It feels though this is never overdone and just adds to the right amount of it. Visual effects are truly incredible with using so much CGI, but there is also a lot of practical effects being done with watching many behind the scenes featurettes, which seem to be less of as the films go along, but those films have significantly bigger budgets to go with, so they will look better. All of it still holds up 8 years later and continues to look so damn realistic, and how it seems that it never takes me out of the film. Action is fantastic with having loads of it in this one, which I complained with that the earlier Marvel films lacked in their movies. They go all in with terrific and memorable scenes that I will never forget, especially that fantastic shot of the Avengers all together in New York as the camera spins with the theme playing. Always makes me cry tears of joy. Don't you believe me? Okay, fine. I see how it is. These are also the best action scenes of the whole series so far, that you can actually tell what is happening with outstanding editing to go along with it. This could also be due to having more attention to detail and knowing this is the movie that is going to make/break the MCU, so they went all in, and it shows because this movie still has some of my favorite action scenes of the whole franchise. Costume design is definitely a hit or miss on this one. This one definitely feels like a classic 1960s comic book in the way all their costumes look. I can totally understand if people don't like the design of these, especially when you see all their costumes in later films. One of these is Captain America's costume, but this was done deliberately and actually makes sense when explained in the movie, which I didn't remember catching up on the first few times I watched it. Music is the best of the franchise so far, with it being a staple to the Avengers films, having been tweaked and changed a little in each Avengers film, which I enjoy. Alan Silvestri, who is a legend, truly changed this whole franchise around with his music that sounds brilliant and became a new classic in blockbuster films. The film does have a few negatives, with mainly being that it is a silly comic book movie, and which I said earlier in the review I enjoyed, but sometimes it harbors on the line of challenging moments to 1 minute later being a joke, which is a criticism many Marvel films have gotten, and rightfully so, but there are just a few moments where that happens. The second criticism is that halfway through the film, around an hour and a half point, the film slows down quite a bit for narrative reasons that are done well, but it goes on for a while as it takes time for this movie to get the jump that it needs. If the film had better dramatic emotional dialogue, I think that scene would have felt dragged. Overall, this is my third favorite MCU film, which I think is well deserved considering this team brought all the best aspects about these films so far and expanded them like we haven't seen them before. The movie is so much fun with extraordinary and lovable characters along with hilarious dialogue. It is filled to the brim with non-stop popcorn blockbuster action that has to be seen in a cinema, in which I have had the privilege of doing. If you are a Marvel fan, you have to see this film. And if you aren't, I think you can still know what is happening and have a fun time watching it. I'm giving Marvel's The Avengers an 8 out of 10. So let me know down below in the comment section, have you seen The Avengers? And if you have, where does it rank in your MCU rankings? I want to know all those things down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel so that you never get to miss a new fun and exciting video. Next week, we are going into phase 2 of the MCU that starts with Iron Man 3, still going with the chronological order. As always, I will see you all in the next video.